Good morning, and welcome to Issues That Matter. And I am your host, Robert Piccone, and I'm very pleased to have a co-host today, Jessica Liberty. Jessica, welcome back.
Good to see you again.
And our guest today is a person of great interest, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions for him. But our guest is John Jenkins, who is a candidate for governor in the state of Maine.
Thank you,
John,
sir.
Welcome.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you, sir.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Why don't you open up with the questioning there, Jessica?
Sure. So this is actually your second run for governor. In 2010, you launched a writing campaign as an independent. Why again?
This is my time, and this is what people have asked me to consider as well, based on my success as mayor of Lewiston, Maine State Senator, then mayor of Auburn, and in fact in Auburn, my second term, they made history by that's the first time a citizen-initiated writing campaign was successful in the state of Maine, and people are saying, my goodness, you've done what the state needs to have happen in terms of leadership and bringing people together and having a vision, but also the physical work that you're doing right now on the ground, addressing opioid issues, addressing the work readiness and other issues that affect our state's economy.
So you've done listening tours prior to your decision to jump into the race
correct.
in 2018. What did you hear from Mainers?
My goodness, access to health care. Homelessness is an issue that's major to a lot of people as well, and the issue of food insecurity, hunger, and of course the opiate issue that is affecting every demographic here in the state of Maine, and then the issue of persistent poverty. When you have 47% of your student body is roughly, free and reduced lunch, that's a big issue. So those become real major issues that people have said that cuts across the board. So as we talk about Maine's future, we need to take a clear shot picture of who we are, where we are right now, and address those issues to go forward. But you can't go forward for those high-end jobs if you don't have high-end literacy to take those jobs that are sitting there waiting for us. So those are things that I've been hearing from people, and those are the things that I've been addressing as well.
How would you approach that?
Well, one of the ways you do it is you've got to be able to fund these programs. Number one, you're funding school already. And I'm saying, well, why don't we start looking at how we're spending those monies, how much portion is going toward administrative fees, but also versus going into the classroom. That's one. The other is, what is the cost of running your municipality? One of the things I'm most proud of is the whole Regional Service Center initiative that I'm not bragging. I started it, but when I say it is a collective. So I had to get my counselors on board, walking from all political stripes, to come together and support.
Every effort has to have a leader.
Well, okay, I was the point person to get it started, but I just want to make sure that I was clear about it's not about me, it's about the we. And so we got a lot of things done when egos get out of the way and you actually look at who you work for, which is the people. So I was proud that we started a whole LA Together Regional Service Center initiative that was written up in their Maine State Planning Office report. In the first covering page to forward, it says, I want to thank John Jenkins when he was mayor of Lewiston, who started this initiative around the state of Maine. And Angus King was governor at the time, and saw that and was telling everyone else around the state of Maine, this is what Maine's future economic sustainability is going to be based on. Regional service centers coming together, communities working together. By pooling their resources and their ideas, they can reduce their costs of operation. Hence, don't get into spending a whole lot of new money on new programs. Start giving some tax relief to the people who live here. Meme and Pepe, they don't have endless pockets. And these are the people whose shoulders we're standing on, that we can enjoy the state of Maine that we have now, but we owe them something. And I'm saying, my goodness, we will make it affordable to live here. And you do that by managing your costs as a municipality and how much percentage of your land mass that is going off to nonprofit, if you will, because that becomes a big issue.
There's a phrase that comes to mind talking about things like what you're talking about now, is that it's very easy to spend someone else's money.
But it's my money. And I look at my pocket.
And I look at the town that I live in, which is they're putting in this beautiful high school campus. Now, does a high school need a campus? I don't know.
Serving only one community?
No, it's serving multiple communities.
So it's a regional.
I mean,
it's a regional
in a
high
sense,
school.
Yes.
Okay.
It's serving. I would call them neighboring, very much neighboring communities.
Okay.
It's really all one big community.
So it's a regional high school.
But my point is this.
Yes, sir.
the cost of this is going to have an impact on property taxes. My concern is, with all this money being spent, yes, maybe to offer the absolute best education possible, which we certainly do owe our children, but we've got to be able to do it in a way that is affordable. Otherwise, we're going to be putting people out of the house. People are going to lose their homes because they can't afford the taxes.
Well, schools are a part of the bill that you got to pay. I mean, that's just the reality of your community, and so that's just that's part of the program. That's part and parcel. So usually, every community is slightly different. Some cases it's half your municipal budget, and others a little less or more, but it's a big chunk of the municipal budget, and the rest of the money you run your community on. And I'm saying, when I looked at that as mayor of Lewiston, I said, oh my goodness, and the mills had just closed too, which was a major employer in our community. I said, oh my goodness, how are we going to pay for this? That's when I started going to the meetings, council meetings over in Auburn, and I used to stop the meetings at first and say, whoa, what is he doing here? Because the two cities were warring with each other. And I said, my goodness, I don't have an axe to grind with the folks in Auburn. And so I started going to their meetings, build a relationship, and they started realizing that together we can start pooling our resources. And then we convened 5 different meetings when I was still mayor of Lewiston, and the people from the regional service centers from Presque Isle, Biddeford, Saco, you name it, Portland, South Portland, they all came. And I said, think of Maine as a living organism. If you're feeling a little under the weather, you go to the physician, she checks your pulse, and she says, it's a strong pulse. Oh, let's look at what else is working or not working for you. Weak pulse, they say, oh my goodness, something terrible is happening. We have economic pulse centers. Those are your regional service centers where people shopping and banking, et cetera. And I said, if your regional service centers are strong economically, guess what? That's Maine's economy. It's driven by those regional service centers. Hence, we as regional service center leaders, if we started pooling our resources, let us come together around 3 things. One, we all need similar things. I need infrastructure improvements, sewer pipe, et cetera. You need it, you need it. So I said, look, if we did 3 things. 1, we buy in bulk, big savings. 2, we buy direct, big savings. And 3, preferably buy in Maine within a margin, because but we buy in Maine to put other Maine people back to work. We sit back and wait and start singing a trumpet song of trying to get the heroine person to come in on a horse to save us. I'm saying, guys, we can save ourselves by being smart with the dollars we do have. When we pool our resources and work together as regional service centers, we should pass those costs on to those people who open those small businesses in our community and people who are paying those property taxes. Give them relief so they can afford to live here. And that makes a big difference in terms of how we can pay for that school and how we can pay for those improvements, because we don't need 2 80-foot line trucks for the fire department. If in fact, for example, we looked at Auburn and Lewiston, there's this river that separates the two, Rancho, and we noticed that some of our housing was closer to one fire station in Auburn, and some of Auburn's housing was closer to one of our fire stations in Lewiston, just across the bridge. So we started the whole pooling resources and looking at us as a region. That made a big difference in terms of how we structure, how we do and provide the services that people expect and deserve to have.
Would that be your first priority as governor?
I would reinvigorate that regional service center initiative. Absolutely, I would lead that way. I led it already when I was just mayor, and so as governor, I'd be convening that again. I don't know. I think the title is still there. I think it's under the MMA, I believe, but it's not what I had envisioned and what we had envisioned when we first started that. So I'd be rekindling that with a new purpose, because we got to look at what are the pocketbooks here in Maine, what can they afford? And so we keep talking about we're going to promise to do X, Y, Z, but my mind always says, how are you going to pay for it? And my mind says, I have a plan that we've already put in place, and like I said, was recognized by the Maine State Planning Office. That's one, definitely. And then that helps us to have some resources to not only lower our taxes, but also how are you going to pay for that opioid issue that's affecting every community? And I said, those dollars got to come from somewhere. And I say, you do it in your own homes, you do it in your own businesses, where you say, my goodness, I love to buy that high-end car, but this car right here will get me from point A to point B very well if I just put a little money into it and take care of it. And I'm saying we need to spend our money wisely, and the hand of government by necessity is in everyone's pocket. As elected officials and appointed officials, we have a fiduciary responsibility to take the hand of government out of people's pockets so they can afford to live here. So let's not let the hand go any further than it needs to. I don't want to pay any more than I have to, and I think the average Maine person is saying the same thing. can you have our back? I mean, people talk a good game, but can you really, really work hard to deliver that for us? Please, we're trusting you to do that for us. I'm saying I've already done it. That's why I got so reelected every time in Lewiston, Auburn. And I said in Auburn, they wrote me in because they said, one, your name is not on the ballot, but they said, you get it. And so it has less to do with me and more to do with the people waking up saying, we the people literally put this guy in office because of what he's already done. And people around the state of Maine has noticed that. And they're saying, my goodness, maybe you could help do that for the state of Maine. I'm saying, I would love that opportunity. And I know it's a long shot, but at the same time, I'm not a stranger to taking the odds, and I've been an athletic competitor for many years and been at the World Championships many times. And
one only has to learn your background.
I got a background. Okay, I got a background. Okay.
It's a large field this year.
It is.
Does that make the task easier or harder? And tell me about the role of ranked choice voting in this election. First of all, where do you stand on ranked choice voting?
I'm an independent, so therefore it has no bearing on me whatsoever. And I know when it came about, it's like your television these days, it worked fine. I got used to get, the channels free and everything else, and then, it seemed to be working fine. But they made improvements, and I'm saying, my goodness, how's that better for me? But anyway, it is what it is. So I understand that ranked choice came around because they said, oh my goodness, there's too much money in politics. I don't see it changing that. But also the other is that every time you have to do a runoff, that's more money, et cetera. So we're saving the taxpayers money. Fine. Then I say,
how's that saving if we're taxing the resources at the Secretary of State's office, and municipalities don't have the ballot machines to count these things? That's a cost.
That is a cost. And I'm just saying that's what was proposed. I'm saying, so my point is saying I'm willing to give it a try. It won't affect me anyway because I'm an independent.
Right.
So, but I say the voters have already said we want this. I want to say make sure it's in compliance with the laws of our land, and let's give it a try. But voters have also said we want the opioid recreational marijuana. I was against that personally because I teach a class it's called Prime for Life. It's a national program, and substance abuse prevention. But anyway, for the medical marijuana, I'm 100% behind and 100% for. The recreational piece, I was not. Anyway, the voters said we want this. I'm saying then we should come up with a rule saying then let's make sure it's in compliance with and protecting those that would be at risk. So the voters have said many times they want X, Y, Z, but the leaders and our state government have had a deaf ear apparently. And I'm saying, who do you work for? I said, that's what's called public service. This is your boss speaking. And you can't imagine an employee walking into your office, if you're your employee, starting to dictate to you what you should be doing in your business. I'm saying we got this upside down. So people get elected and they forget who they work for. And if they're working for the party and not the people, that becomes a problem.
Those citizen initiatives have become really a hot button issue in Augusta because I don't think a lot of people read the 32 pages for the marijuana initiative.
Right.
And as passed by voters in November of 2016, a 2-year-old could have had access to marijuana. I don't think that was the intent of the public.
No, right.
But do you think that underscores the issue that citizen-driven initiatives, they don't have that institutional knowledge? Having served in the State House, you hear that term a lot, institutional memory, institutional knowledge, and they're not fully vetted out in public hearings. That there are a lot of loopholes. They spent 1.5 years looking at the marijuana bill, and now we have this ranked choice voting that's appeared before the courts twice because our Constitution doesn't permit it. What are your thoughts about the legislative process by citizenry?
It all has to come, to your point, it has to be, the public has to weigh in, but also it has to be filtered and presented in a way that makes sense. People are working hard, and then they're going to sit down after working 2 or 3 jobs in some cases, and then they have to read a 32-page. It's not going to happen. So we have a responsibility not to make it as complicated as it has been, make it as simple as possible. For example, if that issue was in there where a 2-year-old have access to, then that needs to be aired out and fed out before we even put it out there, if you will, to the voters. But the voters have a chance to weigh in on the public meetings, and I would say we should even look at how we legislate have our meetings scheduled so that people, when they work, they get out of work, we should have it, maybe say move it back, or have a certain day where it's getting moved back and later in the day, so that when they get off work, they can come to, speak up about an issue. I know one of the things that when I was chairing the Business and Economic Development Committee and when I was in the legislature, our first thing we always ask in committee meetings, how many people here are not lobbyists and are just citizens who have an opinion, and the hands will go up and they say, you speak first, because the lobbyists, they're getting paid to be there. These folks are taking time from their work to be there. And I'm saying, why do we make it so hard to serve the people who put us here in the first place? We should be making it as easy as possible and having proactive meetings in their communities or in the public airways where we get free television airtime, not just on cable access, but on commercial TVs, because this is something that affects all of us. So part of their PSAs, that should be a part of that as well. So the public is fully informed and fully vetted and get their information before we actually start making policy.
Is it too far out as a thought to say that if the citizens can pass a citizen initiative, it is then the responsibility of our elected officials to find out a way to work together to figure out a way how this can be put in palatable terms? How can this become a law and have it be palatable? That is what they get paid to do.
I agree. That's how it should be. It should be. So where's the problem?
Well, the problem is it's not being done like that.
Evidently.
Have you spent any time under the This session in particular, the last 2-year session, has become like Washington, D.C. And having served 2 terms under the dome, I'm sure that you know what that atmosphere is. But the atmosphere now is very, it's combative. And
toxic.
the line, toxic, thank you. What would you do as governor to bridge that gap? Because now we have a Republican-controlled Senate, a Democratic-controlled House, and then the target seems to be second floor of the governor. How do you get all 3 bodies to work together to produce something that moves Maine forward economically? Because we are the oldest state in the nation. Our birth rate is far below our death rate. Deaths are occurring at a higher rate than births are here in the state of Maine. Kids leave to go to college. They're not coming back because the jobs don't exist here. How do you bridge that gap and get everybody to work together to put policy before the politics and the rancor?
Well, that takes leadership, and I had to do that to get 2 cities to come together who were at war with each other, Lewiston and Auburn at that time, and I imagine the other communities is similar. And basically, you get your ego out of the way, and you stay in the meeting until the work gets done. You don't end your legislative session before you finish the work that the people have hired you to do, and that takes leadership. For example, the legislature is on a break right now, and as governor, I'm just saying, no, we stay until the work gets done. The folks who are waiting for, us would know if they're going to be able to make payroll. They're waiting for us right now. But yet you guys, you do a little bit, then you go home and you have the luxury of, whatever. Again, it's a stipend, but the point is they're still paying you to honor your word. And I say, as governor, I'd be leading that charge and not. Again, the legislature on one hand said no to the public's voice, and the governor as well said no on certain issues to the public's voice. And I said no, I would take my case to the people because we were all put there by the same folks, and they expect something from us. When I had disagreement on my own councils, for example, I didn't try to twist arms necessarily, say, you got to do it my way. It's not about me. It's about the people we said we will honor and serve and protect, and the public expects us to do the work that we're put here to do. And so I take my case to the public saying, this is your ward representative. You asked me as your mayor to do X, Y, Z. Here's my plan. And it's up to you to ask your employee, the person in this ward, are they on board with this or not? And if they're not, then they have another plan, then put it forth. But to start playing these games back and forth of trying to point fingers and try to duck responsibility, I said, no, I don't do that. And nor will I allow you to do that. I said, they're waiting for us to step up, soldier up. And so the game playing is because you forget who you work for. If you're working for your party, and as long as we win and they lose, then the people wind up losing in the long run. And said, no, I would take my case to the people every time. But I meet directly with these legislators because I got to believe most of them, if not all of them, pretty much are there because they really want to make a difference. And there were points in time when the legislature came together and the governor said no to some things, and they were trying to come together on certain things. I'm saying, so that at least the intent is there. And I'm saying if they were just cultivate that a little bit more, and that takes leadership. And I said, I've done it already with 2 major communities in the state of Maine, and I'd be doing it for the state of Maine as well.
So the legislature, there are a number of issues that were left tax conformity.
Absolutely.
That folks may now need to have 2 sets of books.
And the community
home
services,
healthcare,
healthcare, home
the jails,
healthcare.
funding of the jails.
Absolutely.
And then a little known fact, unless you're a political wonk, the errors and inconsistency bill was one of those that fell victim on their last day on April 18th. That was not enacted finally. And that is where the funds for the clean election campaign come from. The money is in state coffers, but when the biennial budget was passed, it only funded for 1 year.
Yeah.
So that has an implication for elections in November. So would you
Especially
urge
for those
them?
who are doing clean elections.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So would you urge legislators to return to Augusta?
I said it clearly as I possibly can. Matter of fact, I would have not allowed us to end the session in the first place. You're already here. Let's finish the job. We've had many late night meetings in council, for example. I said, no, we're not leaving until we resolve a budget issue, for example, because the people who hired us to do this job, it's not easy and it's not for the squeamish. And I said, so the doors are closed. I'm not going anywhere, and I will not dismiss this meeting until we make some progress on this work. And if we need to come back at it again, fine. But we're going to stay on it until we finish it. And so I'd say the same thing. It takes leadership. And so having done that already, I said, I think people are looking for a way to work together. But when you get into us versus them, boy, it's easy to fall into your tribes and start throwing rocks and saying it's the other person's fault. It's the other person's fault, and my hands are clean. And in fact, everyone's contributing to the milieu there. And that's again, leadership say stop. Referee, we stop it, and let's have. What do you really want, Republicans? What do you really want, Democrats? And also, I know exactly what the people have already told me they want, and these are the people who put all of us here. Therefore, how will you help me as governor? Because we're all working together. Reach this goal A, B, and C. When I run on the platform, the people have said, yes, John Jenkins, as our governor, we want you to do A, B, and C. That's going to be the mandate. And so I'll say to the Republicans, I'll meet with them in caucus. I'll meet with the Democrats in caucus. I'll meet with the Independents in caucus, or whomever else is there, the Green Party, and anyone else that's there. But the idea of saying, what are you going to contribute to help? And it's not, again, I'll have a plan, but I'm willing to tweak it to make sure we're all engaged. If you got skin in the game, then you're going to stay in it to the end, because you want to make sure you get your issues addressed as you move forward. But the point is, I'm saying I want you to have skin in the game. So I'm going to find a way to make sure everyone has a part of what that final solution looks like. So it's not about my plan and my issue, because it's not about my party, it's the people's party. That's it.
Government is a business. It's the business of the people.
It's the business of the people. And it takes time. It's messy, and because it's messy, it's exciting. And I'm a strange one in the sense that it was being mayor and state senator, but especially being mayor was the toughest job I ever loved. Because number one, I learned something new every day about what makes a community work. What is it versus a hot top, a cold patch versus redoing the whole road. And there's little things like that make. Those are the costs that you have. I'm saying, wow, I didn't know that. You have phenomenal, talented people around you. We have phenomenal, talented people that help us run the state of Maine. And I would make sure they were like teaching the public of what it costs when you say we want X, Y, Z. And for example, when I was mayor of both Lewis, it started in Lewis and did it in Auburn as well. I said to all of our employees, day one, I said, come into the budget meeting. People tend to come representing their department, talking about my budget, my trucks, my people, I'm saying the word my goes away. These are not your trucks. These are not your people. Matter of fact, the very desk I sit behind that has a little label that says mayor on it, I don't own that desk. I'm a steward of the public stuff. So therefore, it all belongs to the people. Hence, we should look at one pocketbook, that's theirs, and mine as well. And I said, what are we going to do that's going to minimize the impact on my boss's pocketbook? So I said, so we're not going to go into these separate divisions of different departments, number one, or it comes out of one pocket. But the other is that I said, we all work for the same employer. And I said, so when we look at it as a holistic sort of approach and not some separate little pieces, makes a big difference in terms of how you budget and can restrain. If the public says we can't afford more than a 3% increase, then guess what? Across the board, folks, we're looking at what can you do, and you're going to come back from your department and your area and talking about what savings are you going to initiate, because you know your department better than I do. And so I'm going to rely on those experts to look at each of their departments to come back and say, look, here's what I can do to contribute, but also I will let the public know. And the other piece is this. I said, we're going to get out of our offices in City Hall, because people tend to think, oh, you can't fight City Hall. I said, why would you want to fight City Hall? You own it. You own everything in it. So we get into this division of we're making people get on their knees, come to City Hall begging for permission. I'm saying, you don't understand. You work for them. That's why it's called public service. So what we did was, I'm very proud we started this, and matter of fact, Frank Kelly's passed on, a counselor who started this with me, was in Lewiston, and we started having ward meetings. And I said, so every department head, we had 5 wards, and I said, we're not going to the ward meeting to tell them anything. So it is publicized, and you only got a lot of people at the council chambers when there's a hot button issue and they really show up. If you're going to cut hockey, well, you better believe you better move it to the arena, because everybody's going to show up. So, but most times it's not that many people that come to the council meetings. I said, it's because they're working. So I said, let's make it easy for folks. We work for them. Therefore, when they get out of work, we're going to have a certain night of the week. They know Ward 1 meeting is, was well advanced and noticed. And so we had ward meetings, and I said, we're going to go there to listen, not to tell them anything. And sure enough, they say, wow, number one, you all showed up to hear us? I'm saying, well, you're my boss. Why would we not? That's a booster right there. Number two, I said, you tell us what you need here. I mean, so I don't live in this community, this ward, so you got to tell me. And it's my job and our job as the council and our department heads. And when the people had a question about the hot top, for example, then the public works person stand up and had to give an explanation. When they had a question about anything the city is doing that works on their behalf, we had the expert there to answer their question and say, wow, thank you. Saves them time and having to go on their knees saying, oh my gosh, I got to beg them to get information. Said, no, we owe you that information to make an informed decision. And so when we make decisions, you know why and how we got there. So we started having ward meetings. That made a big difference. I'll do the same thing as governor. I'll be going to the regional service centers and those regional areas saying, you tell me what your state needs to do to help you recover economically. Washington County, my goodness. I've been to every high school in the state of Maine over these 40 some odd years doing these inspirational, traveling, motivational leadership talks. And from Fort Kent to Kittery, Bethel, Bath, and Mapleton, Maine. And you mentioned I've been everywhere, and I feel like, I've been everywhere, man. But I've been to every community in the state of Maine for many years, and some are barely hanging on by their fingernails. And I said, we can't let our brothers and sisters wither on the vine while we keep looking at how we're going to keep improving already improved areas. I said, we cannot turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to the suffering that we have right here in the state of Maine. And I'd pay close attention. We had a portion of Auburn, for example. It's called New Auburn. That's the title of the area. And for years it was neglected. When I got elected as mayor, I'm saying, number one, we're taking care of our gateway to our city. And boy, oh boy, the people would light up saying, you actually notice who we are? I said, why would I not? You're a key part of our community, and it's a part that needs the most service and need. And plus, you're our gateway, my goodness. And so that's spruced up tremendously. Again, it has less to do with me. We got a council that started working together, and we got things done. And so I've learned how to do that, learned how to listen before legislating, and that's a huge, huge thing.
Do you see the degree of difficulty in doing something like that greater at the state level than you might see in a local community?
The state level is made up of local communities. That's the thing. And so if it works as it has worked here in the state of Maine on a local level, that's where people live. They don't live in Augusta. They live in these local communities. And I'd be taking the state government to them to hear what they have to say. And their representative will be there as well, hearing the same message. So we can walk hand in hand in a kumbaya moment back to Augusta because we both got the message from our boss.
And you would do that through your regional service centers?
Regionals, because you got to reach the whole area. It's not about one little community. It's about what we can do. And the people in Washington County have a lot more in common than they do with the people down in, let's say, Kennebunk. And so you got to deal with the region and the people who, they know what they need. They're experts in where they live. And so you got to listen to what they need first and go there, not just talk about it and legislate on high. I go right where the work is being done, right on the front edge. And, you know, I don't need advisors. I go directly and I talk to you directly. I go to your house. I go to your business. You know, my public works people, there were times I was down in the hole, and especially time I had big snowstorms, which had a few. I'd make sure that my public works people, again, I'm not bragging or anything, but I'd make sure they got coffee, especially when they had the breaks between, because they were up all night. It didn't make paper, and no one knew, except they knew that someone cared about them. They said, my gosh, you know, the mayor came over here, and, you know, I went and got big boxes of Joe. A little thing, but it made a big difference in terms of how they felt. Someone values who we are. And I'm saying, all we got to do is say thank you, but also deliver and back up that thank you with real results that make a difference. But you get the results based on what you've heard from the experts. So you listen before you legislate.
What do you see as let's take the three biggest issues in the state of Maine. What would you see them to be?
Well, it depends. When you say the issues, for example, there's no doubt about that opiate is a substance abuse issue. It's people are dying, literally. I mean, we have brothers and sisters out here dying, literally. And number one is I do work already in that area, and we just had a conference. It's called From Opiates to Opportunities for Veterans. It was a statewide conference. We had it online as well, and we had quite a few people tune in because of the substance abuse issue. And I also work in that field, working with people in recovery, teaching the whole mindfulness work, helping them in recovery. So number one, we start improving how do we have more centers like that to reach people on the edge and trying to get help. Number two, I understand there's a lawsuit making its way through the courts, and then speaking with the physicians on the front line. Apparently, pharmaceutical companies targeted places like Maine and said, as if we were lab rats, saying, let us try, and we floated, and they actually were, doctors told me, they were told, this is harmless. You can prescribe as much as you want, and they did. And so that contributed to this issue that we have. And I understand there's a lawsuit saying you cannot do that to people, and I'd be all over that if that's something that, if I'm lucky enough to be in this position, I'd be leading the charge saying, no, you cannot get my people addicted to this substance, and then you walk away saying my hands are clean. I said, no, you owe us. And so I'd be going after them in a big way. And the other is being proactive on the front side, which I do in schools as well, is teaching lifestyle skills so that people aren't inclined to reach for that substance to get relief from the pain they're suffering from every day. Some of it's physical, some of it's emotional.
Now, I see this as being closely tied in with something that we talked about back in the green room earlier this morning, about how students are not being taught if you want something, you have to reach out for it and go for it. It's not going to be just given to you.
That's correct. And I teach a work readiness program. As I said, I teach at Lincoln Academy, teach many courses there. And I teach the students, I said, number one, the job you're probably going to have in the future is one you're going to create. Number two, even if you work for someone else, even if you're employed by someone else, you always work for yourself. So you should not graduate from this school without having at least one or more licenses or certificates for different careers in your back pocket. Everybody doesn't go to college, and everybody doesn't get a trophy. And so let's get over that right now. I know people as a mindset these days, just show up, you get a trophy. I've been a competitor on an international level for many years, and I wish that were the case, but I had to take a lot of whoopings to get to the world championship.
But there's something that you learn in those
absolutely.
trials than you do in your trial.
You had to go through it to get to it. And I'm teaching my kids, you think this is hard. When you get out there, people are going to be less patient with you. And I said, so you better go through the tough stuff now, and because people like me will pick you up and dust you off, but I'm going to be riding you hard because I need to harden you up and prepare you for the realities of what you're going to face. And so my students are graduating with certain certificates and licenses in their back pocket, but also they know that you don't get a trophy just for showing up. You got to put your time in, you got to reach out, but more important, it takes strength and courage to say, I don't know, and to ask. And you have people like myself who will knock a wall down for you to give you that answer because we want to see you succeed. We need you to succeed because you're the next generation of leaders.
You talk about the, sorry.
I get excited. I'm going to get carried
Well,
away.
you talk about those certificate programs. That really sounds like the model of the bridge year, which is juniors and seniors are matriculated into college programs, but they come out with that trade certification at the end. It was a pilot in 2012 up in Herman High School. They had 12 students participate in that, and there are, I believe it's 27 career and technical education centers throughout Maine. It really sounds like you would be an advocate for that bridge year.
100%, because everybody doesn't go to college. But I know that we, schools, many times have assemblies and we want to celebrate so-and-so that's got to, admitted to such and such college. I'm saying, well, who's celebrating the kid that's going to the trade school? Who's the kid that's, getting his, his or her, license for auto mechanic or heating and cooling? I said, we put it down as if that's a trade that's, I'm saying, are you kidding me? They're going to make more money than any of
And
you
not
guys.
in debt.
I have
Not in debt. I said, that's just huge.
I have thought for a long time, and if I say how long, people will know.
It's only a couple of years, right?
But I have thought for a long time that we've spent too much time and wasted too much energy and have actually caused positive harm by trying to put square pegs into round holes.
Well, the last I knew in research is that 65% of the people who go into college and are not working in the field of they're working in the field that they got their degree in. 65%. So a lot of people with really high degrees. I know people with more degrees than a thermometer, and they're not doing the work that what their degree is in. And so they're looking for other things that you say overqualified. I'm saying, but if they had some of those basic skills in their other pockets that are available right now, we have small businesses that are desperate for folks, and they're willing to train you and send you to school and get you those licenses now while you're in school, so that they're looking ahead, saying that you're going to live someplace. And my goodness, when you dance with the one who brought you. So when you look for work opportunities down the road, you're going to say, my gosh, I'm able to support myself out of high school, support myself, get a home, and make a good income right here. And these are jobs that are not going to be sent offshore, but in fact, I can make a decent income here, and they won't leave you because Meme lives here, Pepe lives here, the kids are in school, and they're in Maine. My gosh, there's no place better than Maine. So who's going to leave in the first place? But if you can make more than adequate income and live in a wonderful place that's very safe for your kids, I mean, again, people will not leave. And so our young people leave where they think there's opportunity. And that's the other piece, is I do another program called Maine is Me, which talks about student mentorship, where we have almost like a junior chamber of commerce, where get your kids early thinking about entrepreneurs and money management and these sort of things, because they need to understand this place called community, that there is a place for them, and what are the rules in making it work, and how they would contribute to that, thinking about that as early as possible. And so I have a whole program that I've been sharing with the student council, leadership conferences, et cetera. So I've been going around the state sharing it with students already, and the kids light up saying, oh my gosh, those are life skills that we, as a next generation of leaders, we gotta know. I'm saying I agree. So I'd be pushing that very hard, and I'd be leading that charge, not on high. I'd be in the schools doing what I'm doing right now, talking directly with the kids and not bragging. But every time I've spoken to a group of students, it's a standing ovation, because the kids get it. They understand, my God, this is what we've been looking for. It's straight talk, but also, and I don't hold back on them either. I lay it on them, but also they understand I love them, and I desperately need them to succeed, because we all need them to succeed.
Now, it's clear that you spend a good amount of time in various schools around the state.
Yes, sir.
Possibly around the country.
Yes, sir.
What
And in
kind
other
of
countries.
attitude what kind of reception do you see you get from teachers in the school, current teachers in the schools, who are perpetrating some of the things that we see as problem issues?
I think teachers are, for the most part, are doing the best they can. Okay, I'm going to get in trouble probably with this. I do a lot of programs that are tailored for the schools are asking for, and on substance abuse, for example, or bullying, you name it. And so I do quite a few different programs. And I said, and I talk to conferences all the time of teachers, and I said, it's funny how, and also to elected officials as well. I speak at the Maine State Conference, Maine Municipal Association. I've spoken there many times. I said, it's funny, come June, schools don't have a drug problem. They're like, oh, you got a point there. Yeah, I said, because the school's closed. So we, the community, I'm just saying, in my humble opinion, We have fallen down on our responsibility in raising our children. We keep asking teachers, you have a degree in science, you have a degree in languages, and that's what your specialty is in. But we're also asking you to do counseling, we're asking you to do all these other things that's taken away from what your degree is in. And because we're saying raise our children, and then we do nothing on the other side when they're not with you in school. I'm saying teachers are going to do the best they can with the limited time we have, and not to mention the proficiency nonsense. Don't get me started. I said, well, let's go back to learning results with some basic things we got to stay consistent with so that we're not always teaching to the test. So they're going to jump, we're pulling their little strings, and the teacher's going to do the best they can to respond to what we demand of them. But I'm saying, then let us do our responsibility and raise our children so that we're sending them to school ready to learn. But when they have to feed our children and deal with disciplinary issues that we, the community, are stepping away from in responsibility, I think that's wrong. And so then they wind up being the fall guy, so to speak, when things don't, why is Johnny not reading? Well, I'm doing all these other things and I'm spending this much time on reading with Johnny. That's why Johnny's not reading. And so I think we, the community, have a responsibility. And again, don't get me wrong, I'll be leading the conversation on that directly with the local left leaders and school boards, talking about what the community needs to do.
There is an issue that we have not yet touched on that I think it would be remiss if we did not at least touch on it. And you can't watch television news without seeing a report talking about it, and that's gun control. Where do you see, it's thought that we've seen a lot more school shootings than we've seen in the past. I think there are reports out there or some studies out there that would indicate that that's not necessarily the case. But where do you see the gun issue going? Where do you think the gun issue should go?
And their big pool of voters. Gun owners in Maine, we have the largest gun ownership in the state of Maine and actually some of the safest statistics as far as gun violence. So that is a big question for voters.
Well, unfortunately, I've witnessed people being shot. Grew up in Newark, New Jersey,
Yep.
77 riots, and saw family and friends being shot. Also, gang violence, people getting shot. So it's only now is it on the news. The problem has always been there. And where society breaks down in terms of responsibility and respect of each other, whether it be a gun or a knife, I mean, people are getting knifed as well. But yet we want to say, oh, well, if we just got rid of this one thing, then it's all going to be well. I don't know if I just lost my microphone. If there's hatred and lack of socialization amongst us, then if you are antisocial, you're going to find a way to do harm to your neighbor. And so the gun happens to be available. Now, should people have military grade capacity? No, they should not. Should there be a background check? Yes, there should be, I think. And so the fact is that I have many friends who hunt and are avid hunters and also gun collectors. And I've seen phenomenal safes that they have, secure safes of phenomenal guns that they've collected. And so they should have a right to collect and save those guns.
Issue with anything
that
leads to registration of guns, registration of ownership of guns. And we've already seen legislation that's attempted to be passed.
Question 3.
That says confiscate the guns. That was done at the federal level. A legislation, it didn't pass, it was proposed. It did not pass, it was proposed to confiscate the guns.
Are you talking about Mark Dion's red
Yes.
flag bill? That
Yeah.
bill came out of committee with a divided report, but it was not, it's one of those bills that sat unattended as legislature went home. What do you think of Mark Dion's red flag bill?
I haven't read the bill, so what is
So it's
the
a,
bill?
I
it's
was
a
talking about-
community protection bill where,
I was talking about the federal level, not
okay,
the state.
because we have an effort here in the state of Maine where if someone makes an allegation that you are unstable mentally, law enforcement would have to come in and seize your weapons.
There's a thing called due process. So if two people, for example, I've seen unfortunately kids become the pawn between two people who no longer get along with each other, and unfortunately they say, well, we'll use the kids to batter the other person with the kids. If there's two people who don't get along, and they say, oh, well, all I can do is say this person is unsafe and take their guns away. So no, it's got to be due process. So just because someone says it doesn't mean it's so. So I think you go through this adjudication where, in fact, you find out the facts of the situation, and if they're proven to be mentally unstable, or if there's a risk, then in fact, yes. But no, just because someone says, "Oh, I'm in a bad mood and I don't like my neighbor. I know my neighbor has guns. I know I can get at that person," and just make that claim, you got to back it up, and it's got to be proven with due process. So I would not be for just because someone. I've seen people unfortunately abuse having the power of their words condemn someone else because there was a personal issue, and in fact, the person was not at risk. So no, I know a lot of responsible owners of firearms, and in full disclosure, I am as owner of one, and but I strongly support having a background check, and again, should there be aftermarket additions that change the functionality of it, like bump stock? Absolutely, I said that should not be available because it changes the whole function and purpose. It's been repurposed in a sense. Now it's a multi-shooting apparatus as opposed to what it's designed for. So I say keep it to true hunting, and every hunter I know, which I know quite a few, they would not be caught seen out there with a high capacity weapon. That's, again, they don't hunt that way.
So would you also ban the size of the magazine clips?
Again, you don't need military grade weaponry in your hands in the general public here in the state of Maine. Gun ownership, again, I know quite a few people who've been extremely responsible, and I have no intention of changing that hunting culture, which has been quite responsible, and the fact that there's some people that is their food source. So they live out in the rural parts of our state, and hunting is an avid, not just a recreation, it is something that they do to support their family. I mean, costs being what they are, and they have to drive very far to get to the food supermarket like we here in the urban areas have. They don't have that luxury. So in fact, hunting is an integral part of their survivability. And say, now we're gonna take your ability to feed your family away? That's a hard sell. What are you going to do instead? And so you wind up making them on the welfare system. And I said, that's the wrong direction government should be going.
So another issue related to life, where do you stand on pro-life issues? And there's a lawsuit actually in the courts right now about paying for abortions. Where do you stand on the abortion issue? That's
a personal matter, and I would not be interested in revisiting or re-legislating Roe v. Wade. And that's a personal issue between the family involved, if you will, and because I say family involved, and the other part of that would be, where's the man in all of this? In that it winds up being the woman's responsibility whether she's going to abort or not, and there's not any discussion, or very little, if any at all, of the male's responsibility in this role, in this possibility, and what's going on. And so when I see or know of situations where there are men who have unfortunately been of the mindset that they can have a number of kids, and she's now making that decision where I keep this kid or not, there should be some responsibility that we hold accountable to the man, the other mate, if you will, in this situation. But also re-legislating the Roe v. Wade, I would not be interested in reopening that. And in terms of public funding, if that's your question.
That was going to be the direction that I was going to go in, public funding.
Coming back to public funding, I guess if we're already paying health care, and if this is a health care issue, then in fact, if we're paying health care costs as it is, then that's part of the health care process for that person, if that's what's deemed necessary. If the life of the mother, for example, if that's something that the physician and that personal decision occurs, that'd be some hard decision making, if you will, saying, no, we're not going to, allow that process to happen and let her die, and the child as well.
I would not that it makes any big difference to anybody, but I would be very much in favor of public funding if it's limited to the safety and health of the mother.
That's what I'm saying.
Or if the pregnancy was brought about because of through nefarious means such as rape. Those are different issues. But the issue lies primarily with people that willingly go through it, go through the process, get pregnant, and then just decide afterwards, I don't really want the baby.
Well, yes, you and I are saying this right now. However, I've seen people and seen couples in that situation, and it's usually more of a weighted decision making as opposed to I'm not in a good mood today and it's Wednesday. I guess I'll have abortion today.
I've never meant to intimate that it was that.
No. But I'm saying it. So I don't think it's that casual because you're ending the potentiality of a life, and also if the life is, if they determine that this is again, this is just me saying this. If this is not a viable pregnancy, you got a choice to make, and if it goes full term, then it's going to endanger again, turning back into that whole life of the mother.
It's going to endanger the life of the mother. I would be very, very much. I was not opposed to it. I would venture to say I'd be in favor of it. If it means it's going to put the mother's health at risk.
Well, I think it's a personal decision, and I think if I'm representing government and leading that charge, I would not be leading that charge saying, I want to know your reason why, and start getting into people's personal medical histories and what makes them make the decision they make, dealing with their own medical condition. And I think, again, as I said about the hand of government in terms of taxation, I think in terms of policy making and hand of government, get out of people's bedrooms, get out of people's pockets, and the more we can start getting our nose out of people's business and raising people's children. One of the big issues that came up when I was in the legislature, again, this made me kind of move me toward the independent role, and I was in caucus with the Democrats, of course. And
you were a Democrat when you were in the state Senate.
That's correct. But when you run for mayor, you're nonpartisan. In fact, it was a Republican running my campaign at the time when I was running for mayor. But more important, back to the issue of there was an issue that came up saying they don't want to notify the parents when a child has to get an abortion. I said, it just baffled me. I'm saying, why are we raising people's children? A nurse in school cannot even give an aspirin to a child without permission from the parent. And now you're saying you want to do something more egregious to this child's body without notifying the parent? Well, you might be notifying the person that perpetrated the child in the first place. I'm saying we're making a massive law based on one possible unique situation. I said laws are expansive. It covers everyone. I said I cannot support we, the state, now getting into raising people's children and start doing these things to people's children. Should something go wrong, and we, the state, has now stepped in and said, yes, we can do this, I said, we're going down the wrong path here. I said, we got to get out of people's lives, stop raising people's children. And that was the issue that came up at the time, and I did not support that issue, and I stand with that again. So it ties into that piece in that I've not wavered from. That's a very serious thing, and we should allow parents to start parenting and help them to do so and give them as much information as possible to prevent the pregnancy. So it gets back to how we're going to fund the whole life skills part of education so that kids are being responsible. When they have something to work towards, they're less thinking about going in this direction because, young ladies in my self-defense class, they're like fierce and they're very focused, and they have little time for distraction, and so they're really focused on. I got time to have a boyfriend later. So I'm really working on X, Y, Z. And I said, if they were my daughter, I'm saying I'm so proud of them. But the idea is that's the mindset kids should be having is future oriented of the skills and life that they want to live, as opposed to the little things that they can get caught up in, and the little cliques that can happen in the schools, et cetera, and start alienating each other. And idea of coming together and becoming leaders now. When you teach them how to lead now, which builds coalitions, my goodness, they're going to start practicing that for a long time. And then we get to be our age. Well, you're very young still, but you get to be our age. Then in fact, they really hone those leadership skills, learning how to listen before they legislate and how to include people in their decision making. Those are huge things. And when the kids say, well, the shootings, back to your shooting issue, when there's shootings, we want to protest and we want to walk outside. I'm thinking, that's great. You'll walk out for your 17 minutes and you'll come back and you'll feel good about it. But what has changed? Yet you still don't take 17 minutes out of your lunch period to talk to that kid that's sitting over there by themselves, that everyone kind of laughs behind their back, or they alienate and does not a part of any team. I said, that would be the better use of your 17 minutes, in my humble opinion. And I said, so I chastise them, saying, you want to point and look at out there, but you don't want to look at your own issues right here in your own little cafeteria. I'm saying, you got to own that. And they say, oh, never thought about that. I said, that's what I need the leaders to do, think. Don't get me started. I'm fired up, brother. I'm fired up.
Well, unfortunately,
No.
we're running up against the clock.
Oh, no. It's only 10 minutes.
But if they want to learn more about where you stand on the issues, where can they go?
www.jenkinsforgovernor.org. Oh, I can't do that.
Any viewer of the show knows that I am not a fan of one and done.
One and done. Okay.
Now you're looking at me like, what do you mean by that?
Well, I know that.
What I mean by that, if you're a guest on this show,
Oh, yes.
and you enjoy the show, I am not a fan of having this be your sole.
I don't know.
I'm proof. I've been back several times.
Yeah, well, you're the co-host. I mean, yeah, so you guys are in charge. I mean,
Yes, no, I very much, you have a lot to discuss, be it as
understand.
governor or be it as a private
passionate
citizen.
citizen.
You have a lot to talk about. You have a
Thank you, sir.
background that gives you more than an ample amount of things and more than ample knowledge and experience
thank you, sir.
that you can share with the multitudes of people
Thank you,
that
sir.
can be a benefit to them. So with that in mind, I want to make a handout to you of being a guest on the
you,
show
sir.
again. Again, be it during the campaign
Whatever, yeah.
or after the campaign. I want you on this show again.
Well, I'd love to because I'm passionate about public service. And again, whether I'm governor or not, because I say to folks, you can serve. Just get out of your seat and serve. So that being the case, if that's the title that I have, then I'd be back. If that's not the title I have as governor, I'd still be back because I'm passionate about reaching out and helping people. I do it already. And so I would be very passionate about helping students in schools and teachers and community leaders make informed decisions and getting on board and helping their citizens.
We have a plan now. All we have to do is establish a date. And we can do that off camera.
We can do that off camera because I don't know if
We're running out of time.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Honor's
Thank you
mine.
very
Thank
much
you
for
so
coming.
much. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very
Best of
much.
luck.
Thank you
And
very
just
much.
for the
Thank you.
for the people in the control room, I did not stand up.
Oh yeah, well I had to stand up because
I did not cut my head off.
yeah, well, I had to stand up to shake his hand. So thank you very
Thank
much.
you
I
very
appreciate
much,
this
John.
opportunity. Thank you.
It's
Thank
been
you.
great having you.
Thank you.
Jessica, thank
Pleasure.
you.
See you soon.
Yes, you will. And folks, have yourselves a wonderful day, and we will see you next week. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.